Hillary Clinton in North Carolina today, just removed from last night's debate last night. Of course, is what we're going to talk about. This is the talk. I knew tonight would be more interesting anyway, because people would be reacting as opposed to prognosticating as they were last night. So we can really talk about what went down and how it went down. So very, very excited about that. We won't delay. I know many of you want to get on aboard as well and join us. 866-99-SIRIUS, 866-997-4748. We actually have two very special guests in studio with us tonight. Happy to have them both here. First of all, ladies first, the co-host of Alter Family Politics, which airs on Radio Andy here at Sirius XM. She is the daughter of the great Jonathan Alter, and she is a correspondent for Time Magazine. Charlotte Alter is here with us. Charlotte, how are you? Welcome.
I'm good. How are you?
Just fine. Pleasure to have you with us. Also with us, no stranger at all. Always good to have his exciting commentary. He is the first public advocate here in the city of New York, the first elected to that position. Ran for mayor himself, as a matter of fact. He's also the host of his own radio show that's nationally syndicated, Both Sides Now, and the author of his 24th book. Somebody was telling me I need to write a book. How do you live in New York and write a book? It's too busy. You can't get any time to, get any quiet time. But his 24th book, I haven't written my first because I just can't. It's too much noise. Bright Infinite Future. And Mark Green is here. First of all, Mark, good to see you.
Great. Thank you for having me back.
And we were just to get all these connections. Jonathan, your dad, appears monthly on your show, right?
We have a weekly show, and he rotates in. You see, he represents the alt-left on our show. And we have a conservative and a liberal, and I'm the moderate host, of course.
Oh, all right, the moderate.
No one's confused.
You're the moderate. Well, let's start in general. Charlotte, what are your thoughts, your immediate reactions to last night?
Well, I thought it was, I thought Hillary Clinton did really well. I think that the gender dynamics were really on full display last night. If you take all of, what Donald Trump said about stamina and about Rosie O'Donnell, even if you just took that out of it, the preparation gap was immense. Hillary Clinton spent weeks preparing for this. She rotated through many different stand-ins for Donald Trump. And the Trump campaign couldn't really, Trump prepared some, but not half as much as she did. And that's something that we actually see in a lot of research between men and women, going back even to grade school. Girls do more homework than boys. Women prepare more for meetings than men do. Men tend to go in and try to fly by the seat of their pants. And
that's why boys always ask girls to do their homework for them.
Right, exactly. One of a couple reasons why.
Right.
But you could see it. You could see it, and I think that's why many people think that she came out on top last night.
And she made that point, Mark. She said, "Donald, I prepared for this debate, and I prepared to be president." She said that, didn't she?
When you make a joke late night or you make a declarative statement, it resonates if it's true. I have a friend who went to Wellesley with Hillary, and she told me that their girlfriends would say if something came up, let Hillary do it, because she's so phenomenally smart, studious, prepared. Not speaking ideologically, we saw one president on the stage last night. In terms of poise, preparation, content. She's prepared. He had his razzle-dazzle. And it works in a Republican primary when no critic of his, no opponent, wants to exploit his ignorance and lies on climate choice, because they all agree. And he was the first time he had to face someone who could call him out. To me, to use a metaphor and picking up on the woman's point, I watched Billie Jean King take down Bobby Riggs on that stage. She just did her job, and Riggs is just this blowhard. And I watched, like so many sitcoms, the blustery husband and the get-it-done grounded wife, Edith saying, "Oh, Archie," Marge Simpson telling Homer, you're such a jerk. And coming out of it, she was the tough mother, And she is. I know her well from the years that she was a senator. I was a public advocate. And he came across a bit as the crazy, petulant uncle, constantly interrupting. Last point, I couldn't have written a funnier end than after it was over, Donald Trump, who married 3 times and cheated on 2 wives, and Rudy Giuliani, married 3 times and repeatedly cheated on Donna Hanover, regretting that they didn't raise the issue of the nominee's husband's infidelity when the nominee has been married to one guy for 35 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
are they kidding?
Yeah, but I think though that was, and you all mentioned before we went on there, him choking. I don't think he could have gotten. I think he had a bad night. It would have been worse if he had brought up Bill Clinton's infidelity. And so this is kind of something to do after the fact. Oh, we wanted to do it. We should have done it. Well, if you wanted to do it, why didn't you just do it? Because you knew that was just ridiculous. So you, like a coward, talk about it when she's not in the room. Because frankly, as despicable as it would have been for him to do that, as despicable as it was for them to invite Jennifer Flowers, I was kind of curious, Charlotte, to see what her reaction would have been. Because I have a feeling she would have shut that down, too.
Well, I'm sure that she has a reaction ready. I mean, I'm sure that the idea that this is going to come up is definitely something that has occurred to her campaign. They prepare for every possible outcome, right? He's hinted at this multiple times. I think that, I actually think that Donald Trump had a muzzle on last night. He was not as bad as people had expected him to be. He didn't call Hillary Clinton names in the way that he did in the Republican primary debates. He didn't. He learned from He learned from the moment when he made a comment about Carly Fiorina's appearance. He didn't make any comments about her face or what she wore. There was even a moment where she. If you notice throughout the debate last night, she was calling him Donald, which he hates. He likes people to call him Mr. Trump. And at a certain point, he said, "Can I call you Secretary Clinton?" And she said, "Yeah." And so then you already have this power imbalance where she's calling him Donald and he's calling him Secretary Clinton. So it was clear that somebody had coached him. Look, don't comment on her appearance. Don't call her a name. Don't call her Hillary to her face, anticipating that there would be some outrage if he did any of those things. Clearly, nobody coached him not to interrupt her 55 times in the course of the debate.
Right, he didn't get that.
But I thought it wasn't a knockout; it was a shutout. That is, he may have hoped to be calmer and not call her names. There's this thing called videotape. And so she waited, saw her opening, and moved right through it on tax returns, listing what he was hiding, not just simply using the word hiding, discussing his misogynistic comments about pigs and women and the Miss Universe a woman, birtherism, and Lester Holt was going to and did. And Hillary Clinton made a mistake 20 years ago by using the phrase super predators. When you're in a debate, everybody has a history you got to avoid. You have to avoid grabbing that tar baby. You have to avoid wrestling and explaining and over-explaining because you sound defensive. She just said, "Gee, I made a mistake on email." She didn't even engage super predator. He is so thin-skinned that he couldn't let go of all the times, and so he dug himself into deeper holes on race and birther and taxes and you name it. And as a debating technique, he did extremely poorly. And on content now, in visual, she didn't look presidential because she wasn't a white guy.
Yeah, she said she doesn't have the look.
What the hell?
Which was a transparent statement for him to make, I think, too, Charlotte, because just like they said about Obama, he doesn't look like John McCain. He doesn't look like a president. She doesn't look like a president.
Right. I mean, and if you talk to Trump supporters and you ask them why they like Donald Trump, often the first thing they'll say is, "I like his balls. He's got balls." It's like, really? Nothing gendered there. I think
And stamina.
And stamina, right?
I mean, that's gender.
And he ran out of gas at the end.
Right. I think you're making a really interesting point about the super predator comment, because one of the moments that I think was really the most obvious example of Donald Trump's lack of preparation was when Hillary Clinton she gave she was talking about institutional racism and mass incarceration and the problems that that's caused in Black communities around the country. And if Donald Trump had really prepared well for this debate, that would have been the moment that he would have brought up the 1994 crime bill, and which President Clinton signed and designed, and which is, rightly blamed for many of these problems. But he didn't, and instead he waited, maybe several answers later to bring up this super predator. He didn't link those two things, and that's actually one of the most, that's one of the most coherent arguments against Hillary Clinton, is that, she does have this kind of, imperfect history with this particular issue. She did say that super predator comment in support of the 1994 crime bill. So that was just kind of a clean hit that he missed.
Yeah, he missed it.
And he could have done better.
And instead, folks, join our conversation. Charlotte Alter, Mark Green in studio with us, 866-99-SERIOUS. She did have, I think, 2 Lloyd Benson moments. One was on the preparation. Donald, I know preparation. Preparation's my friend. And then on stamina. Donald, I know stamina. Stamina's my friend. Those were kind of her Lloyd Benson moments. I will say this, and you all know I, utterly have no regard for Donald Trump. But the weakness in the very beginning, he was hammering on NAFTA. And I said, now, if he stays on that, because it was clear that the Clintons don't have an answer for that yet. They got to come up with something on that. Now, this is my Alex Jones coming out. These trade agreements never seem to work out. But it's like there's a second oath of office that they take aside from the one we see that says all presidents, Democrat, Republican, have to sign trade agreements. It's just, that's to me, because it's throughout. Reagan did it, Bush did it, Clinton does it, Obama's now doing TPP. He's
trying to.
And something tells me that if either one of them becomes president, even Trump, you got to sign the TPP. That's the different thing. But they got to come up with an answer for that.
That was
don't
the
they?
one time that Trump was on the offensive, on the attack, and factual. Right. Because as we know, she had to support her Secretary of State. She leaves. Then they write it.
Right.
Then she can say, whether it's politically inspired or substantively inspired, oh, gee, I didn't like it. Now, I did think she was an A-. I think she's a great person and candidate. But, so going on and on
What's
about...
the minus for her?
2 reasons.
Okay.
One is, and I don't want to be a smarty pants after the fact. I'm sitting in my home watching this. I'm calm. And 100 million people aren't watching me second guess her. He went on and on. I'm going to stop companies from leaving. Oh, really? This is a capitalist system. How do you can't go. We have this trade deficit and we're losing jobs. Oh, like the China making your ties?
Right.
That's
you
simple.
hit those points, yeah.
That's a quick little second.
Yeah.
Anybody can say, here are my plans. My plan is going to create 3.5 million, 10.5 million, and a listener can't know which plan is better. I really wanted Hillary to say, I think my plan is better. But there's a record here. The last Democratic president, Barack Obama, has a middle-out economics. And you know what? Unemployment went from 10 to 5. Donald, 5 is less than 10. And 30, the Democratic administration since 1960, a little footnote I have in the Bright Infinite Future, I apologize. I looked at a quarterly growth from 1960 to 2016, and Democrats were in charge of the administration half the time, Republicans half the time. Growth under Democratic presidents since 1960 is 30% more. 30% more than under Republican administration. George W. Bush, net job growth, 0, if you count the recession. Bill Clinton, 22 million. Barack Obama, 16 million. So if you want to live like a Republican, vote like a Democrat. In other words, cite not, oh, I will do this, I will do that. That's fine. Here is a number.
Yeah.
And if you want to go back to recession, you should vote for this guy. If you want more growth, Obama's had 77 straight. So I didn't think she did adequate on closing the wage gap. So a white guy listening who's losing his job to them, which is a big inspiration of this, Strangers in Their Own Land, the book that was reviewed this Sunday in the Times. She could have said, I'm talking to you, and I'm going to close this gap, not just the pay gap with women, which is very appealing morally and politically, but everyone's wage gap, if you're a working guy or gal, Here's how we're going to do it. And she said minimum wage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to close that income inequality. Wages. And I thought he did better than her on trade versus her a kind of formulaic comments on jobs.
She did. I agree with you, and I think that another missed opportunity for her is that she could have brought up when Donald Trump said wages are too high.
Yeah.
That could have been another thing to throw in his face. And I also think that she was weakest in her opening statement. It sounded rehearsed. It sounded canned. She seemed nervous. She seemed wooden. I did think, one thing that I think people don't pay enough attention to is the fact that Hillary Clinton, every single time she gives a stump speech or every time she, has an opening statement like that, the fact that she brings up childcare, paid family leave, and equal pay is unprecedented. Those have never been issues that have been put at the center of a presidential campaign. Hillary Clinton brings those up every time she speaks. I mean, if you want to say it doesn't matter that she's a woman, okay, you can think that, but show me a man who has developed a comprehensive child care program before anybody else, worked for it their entire life, and brings up these issues that affect every working parent in America.
You're completely right, and I don't want to be a smarty pants after the fact, but people I know were speechwriters to Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and say both of them hated sound bites. They hated being glib, unlike your father and me. We make a living from it. Hillary Clinton doesn't like it either. And, from Lenin to Ronald Reagan, land, peace, and bread. I mean, these great communicators summarize. And instead of, if you just give a list, audiences can be listless.
Right.
Couldn't she come up with a phrase, whatever it is, I want a family-first economy.
Right.
And under that, you have the details. Because I don't know if everybody remembers the three things you just said.
It should be new family values.
Okay. Anything.
Like that.
Tie a ribbon around it so people remember it.
But she is, there was actually a really good Politico piece about this a couple weeks or months ago. She is like allergic to that. Her speechwriters have a really, really hard time with that. And one of the anecdotes I remember from this piece, which I thought was hilarious, was that she's such a literal thinker, and she's so opposed to rhetoric and narrative and kind of the soaring oratory that Obama is so good at, that if somebody wrote in her speech, the line they say,
I read that. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a line on the New York subway: "If you see something, say something." These reporters found that if somebody had written that in her speech, she would change it to, "If you see something, alert the proper authorities." Like, that's how literal she is.
Wow, she's that's very, very interesting. Not surprised to hear it though. I mean, some people are just made that way, and that's okay.
She's great that she says, "Look, I'm in public service, I'm better at the service. Look, I'm not as good a candidate as Bill and Barack." She's admitting what is true. Implicit is, and I think she could be as great or even a greater president when it comes to the job. When she does the job as Senator and Secretary of State, polls go up. When she's a candidate, she makes some mistakes and she doesn't seize that initiative.
And, Ezra Klein at Vox has made a really good point about this, which I think is really important for everyone to remember, which is that the idea of, this whole looks presidential thing, it's not just about, if you look male. It's also about a certain kind of charisma that we expect from politicians, the skill of standing up and saying the exact same thing 5 times a day to huge audiences and captivating everybody's minds and speaking in this big booming voice that, sends shivers down people's spines. Things that, Obama's really good at, Bill Clinton was really good at. And, every president in history has been good at that skill, but every president in history has been a man. So what if there's something to this idea that charisma that we expect from a politician is a quality that is socially cultivated in men in a way that it isn't cultivated in women.
May I be the mark who's not supposed to on this show, but will ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, sure.
Hey,
Barack Obama got a slightly higher percentage of the black vote, in part because he's half white, half black. Okay, instead of 92, he got 97, and probably a bigger turnout. However, he lost white votes because people were anxious. I think most scholars would say he net lost because of his race. Got some, lost some, net loss. Hillary Clinton, how much is she net losing because she's a woman? That is, Barack Obama said, well, there's a reason it hasn't been a woman president. You know, it's not just a coincidence. And so while she will get way more white women, she'll get the same percentage of black women probably, but way more white, professional, educated women than Obama did against Romney. Way more. She's going to lose others who don't like a woman bossing him around as a husband or as a president. You have any? I haven't seen any numbers about it. You have any opinion that it's costing her overall because she's because she's a woman?
Well, so actually, I've done a lot of reporting on this. I wrote a feature on this over the summer. One of the things that's really difficult about this is that African Americans do vote as a voting bloc. I mean, there's a reason that you tend to see in most elections that 90-some% of black voters vote a particular way, usually Democrat. You know, it happened to be that Obama had significantly more than that, but you rarely see a Democratic president who's splitting.
Right.
The vote doesn't usually split. Women do not vote as a bloc. Women almost always split. Usually it's like 55-45, 60-40, you know, one way or the other. And one of those reasons is that the only thing that women resent more than offensive rhetoric like Donald Trump's is the presumption that they would all respond the same way. So I met many, many women who were like, you know, I don't like what Donald Trump says, but I don't like people telling me that I should be a feminist, or I don't like people telling me that I should think
What
this way.
I was talking about also is how many men will not vote for her because, like, and I made the joke about Edith and Archie. There's some guys who...
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's certainly, first of all, the sexism in this campaign, not just coming from the candidate, but if you look at like the campaign buttons that are out there, if you look at the T-shirts, if you look at, you know, there are people, somebody said, you know, Robert Morrow, who wrote this book with Roger Stone called The Clintons' War on Women, which is all about how the Clintons allegedly, you know, did all these, mistreated the women that Bill Clinton allegedly slept with. He said to me, and I wrote this story like months ago, so I don't want to absolutely quote him, but he said something like, you know, I don't hate Hillary Clinton because she's a woman. I hate her because she's like a lying bitch, except he didn't say bitch. He said the C word, which I'm not going to say. But, you know,
He did?
Yeah, he said it to me on the phone. But so, you know, there's definitely this like I don't hate her because she's a woman. I just hate her. And it's this rage. And... you know,
I think this happens all the time. How many people have we met who say, I'm undecided? And then you say, why? And they say, oh, I don't like Trump because he's not bad, X, Y, Z. But I can't vote for Hillary.
Yeah.
And then I always say, why?
Yeah.
Give me a reason why. I did a radio show this morning, and a guy said, well, look at the way she lied about being under sniper fire in Bosnia. I said, you know, you're going back 10 years to find one alleged example where Trump does that 20 times a day. What's wrong with you?
Right. Well, this is also, you know, I think there's also something to be said for like sexism is in many ways like, you know, racism is absolutely unacceptable in like polite society today. You cannot, you know, you do not use the N-word. People do not wear T-shirts with, you know, images of lynchings on them. I mean, I'm sure you can find them, but it's not
probably
something
at an alt-right Trump rally. Maybe
right.
Confederate flags outside the South.
Absolutely. But you would not. You know, I spoke to people who have sold buttons in, you know, since the 2008 campaign, and told me that their buttons of, you know, Clinton sucks but not like Monica, Trump that bitch. Right, all of these buttons are outselling the anti-Obama buttons by multiple degrees, 10
example.
Times, 15 times. It's interesting.
86699. Another place I want to go though quickly. I had been saying over the past few weeks that Trump needed to apologize to the president and the American people for his birtherism. And maybe Lester heard me because he brought it up last night. Is there anything you want to say to those you've offended? He said, I say nothing. I mean, he pretends as if he wants to appeal to black voters, but we know that's just a show. You know, I call it his minstrel show in orange face. But what do you think about him not even making an effort? He didn't back down from it at all. He hasn't backed down from it. He said in the press conference, she started it, but I finished. Now, we know that's not true. We know she didn't start it. That's been proven. He's accused Blumenthal of things. None of that is proven true. But what is you two's reaction to his unwillingness even last night to say, I went over the line?
You know, when you ask people who are undecided, sometimes they say, oh, I can't vote for her. And then you can press them. What the hell are you talking about? Or they say of him, well, I don't really like him, but, quote, he tells it like it is, close quote. What they're saying is they like the imagery of a tough guy. He fills the room. It's Putin's bromance with Putin. They may be wrong, but you want a manly kind of guy.
Right.
You want I would vote for Ray Donovan for president myself. I mean, that's the kind of guy we all want. And so part of his, I don't think it's an analysis. I think it's an impulse, spinal almost. He doesn't want to back down. He doesn't want to apologize. He never has. It's not merely that he's completely unself-aware and solipsistic. I mean, that goes without saying. He has a brand. By the way, this guy thinks in terms of brands, and look how successful he's been. His brand is tell it like it is, and I don't care. And so for him to apologize, which almost every human being would, and as Hillary did on as Hillary has eventually on emails, it tarnishes his brand. One P.S. I love this. Hillary's going to win. When it's over, Trump is building this hotel. Did you know he's building a hotel in Washington? He used a presidential debate.
I'll get to Pennsylvania Avenue one way or another.
To pre-sell units. And his brand is going to go from schlock gold for people who are aspiring to the upper middle class to a kind of alt-right racists,
right,
because that's his supporters, and his companies are going to take a hit. Because who wants to go to a Trump hotel if you're sane?
Your reaction to his inability to acknowledge the birther thing?
I mean, I thought that was, first of all, so do you guys know what gaslighting is?
Yes. Just test me. Let me see if I explain it.
So,
let me try to
sure.
explain. I'm going to see if I know. That's the movie where the man made his wife think she was crazy because he kept the lights flickering.
Right. He turned the lights on.
You turn them off. You know, they were flickering. So she thought, and he would say they weren't flickering, but they were. Right. So made her think she was losing her mind. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
So what gaslighting is, for the purposes of outside that movie, is like telling an obvious lie to make somebody else think that they're going crazy. Right. And it's often something that's used, it's usually used in the context of like manipulating abuse victims. Sometimes it'll be like, I didn't hit you, you fell. You just don't remember, And one of the things when he gave that insane press conference in the Trump hotel, that was, you're completely right, I completely agree, just an extended promotional video for his Trump hotel, was that he said, Barack Obama was born in the United States, period. And then before that he said, Hillary Clinton started this rumor.
Right.
Not true.
Right.
False. And it's a classic, like, I didn't do this lie. You did this.
Yeah.
America, you're crazy. Don't you remember it was Hillary Clinton that started birtherism? Donald Trump is trying to gaslight all of us. And it's yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish. I was just telling Mark to hold on because we can finish your point though.
Oh, no. So I mean, I think his inability to apologize, that's a perfect example. He doesn't say, I said this thing and it's wrong, I apologize. He said, I said this thing and it's wrong, and it was my opponent that started it. So he never backs down. He always lashes out.